The death penalty had been a commonly discussed topic for the past few years. There are many things to consider, such as deterrence, innocence, retribution, and the cost. Some argue that the death penalty is immoral, and some argue that imprisonment does not bring justice. Now, we must first explore these topics to find the answer of, should the government abolish the death penalty? In the recent case of Anadith Reyes, an 8-year-old migrant girl who crossed the borders in Texas, doctors have found 67 traces of DNA inside her, which means that 67 different men had raped her within the past 24 hours of when she was found. In the end, she passed away due to medical complications. In the worst of the worst cases of crimes, such as Anadith's, where lives were taken, what would be the best punishment for these offenders? The death penalty may be a tempting answer. People may say it brings retribution and justice to the victims and their families. You're doing the same thing you loathe to the criminal. Revenge puts yourself in a state of hurt and negativity. When the idea gets to your head, you start engaging in negative feelings and thoughts. Two wrongs don't make it right. You're just repeating an act the criminal did. In jail, prisoners are kept away from society so they cannot harm anyone. Prison rehabilitation programs are accessible to them as well. Humans are capable of change, and many have changed for the better. It may seem unfair, but we cannot punish a criminal by doing the same thing they did. It merely continues the cycle of death. Therefore, imprisonment would be a suitable punishment for these offenders. The death penalty will bring justice to all victims of these offenders. They will suffer the same fate as their victims. It brings closure to the families and restores the balance between the victim and the murderer. Imprisonment keeps the murderer alive while the victim's life have already been lost. Not to mention, some prisons, such as Norway's, are luxurious and accommodate the prisoners to their needs. They give them a place to live, health care, and food, while the homeless suffer greatly. They might as well kill to escape poverty. It is unfair. How can we put offenders who have taken the lives of many others in jail, where they are fed and taken care of better than most of us? To conclude, the death penalty would be the most suitable punishment for them, as the offender will suffer the same fate as their victims. Many studies have been done on the death penalty's crime deterrence. Some suggest that it doesn't deter crimes and some suggest otherwise. And in these two countries, Singapore and Hong Kong, Singapore uses the death penalty sparingly, while Hong Kong doesn't use it at all. Yet, they have almost the exact same crime rate. The death penalty intends to inflict fear upon citizens so they shy away from ever committing a crime. Though, is it effective enough to deter crimes? Contrary to popular beliefs, the death penalty has the opposite effect on the deterrence of crimes and increases the probability of more murders. When a crime is well thought out and planned, even the threat of harsh punishments, such as the death penalty, will not discourage those criminals. The punishment does not abolish the roots of the crimes. Most capital crimes are committed under circumstances in which the criminal's logical thinking is disrupted. Whether the criminal is under the influence of drugs or in emotional distress, if we were to end the neglect of mental health, a sustainable home, and proper education, our community would become more secure and lively. The death penalty inflicts cruel torture upon the subject and takes away their lives to live, which all humans have regardless of their ethnicity or status. Not to mention, the government and citizens have questioned if the death penalty violates the 8th Amendment, which prohibits brutal and abnormal punishments. Some studies regarding deterrence are inconclusive because the death penalty is rarely used and takes years before it is carried out. Punishments that are swift and sure are the best deterrent. Places with lower murder rates is not an evidence of the failure to deter. Places with high murder rates would have been higher if the death penalty was enforced. Not to mention, Singapore, a country that uses the death penalty, is one of the safest countries on earth. Moreover, they use the death penalty only for drug traffickers. If we look at the drug abuse crime rates between Singapore and Hong Kong, you can clearly see the difference with Singapore having a very low drug abuse rate due to the death penalty's deterrence for drug trafficking crimes. Many countries which have very low crime rates use the death penalty. The death penalty does deter crimes, unlike imprisonment, which doesn't shy people away from committing crimes. Who would be scared of being stuck in a room where they are fed and taken care of without having to spend a dime? The death penalty may not deter all crimes, but it prevents more crimes than imprisonment has done. All humans have the ability to improve themselves. Crimes are usually committed under the influence of extreme emotional distress, drugs, or alcohol. Prisoner rehabilitation is the use of programs or services which intend to increase the criminal self-esteem, raise awareness, and break the cycle of reoffending. But there are still reoffending crimes all around the world. The US has the highest rates with 40% of prisoners getting rearrested after their first year out. And with that in mind, how can we prevent reoffending crimes? Prison rehabilitation programs exist in jail. Many criminals have successfully rehabilitated into a better person. Humans are capable of change. Despite the reoffending crimes, many have changed for the better and became a great supporter for our society. Not to mention, the factors to reoffending include childhood trauma, mental health issues, family issues, and so forth. If we were to accommodate them accordingly, all their crimes could have been prevented from the start. Not to mention, the death penalty does not address the root of the crime. It merely takes away the rights to live of the criminal instead of preventing all crimes from the start. Our lack of accessible therapy is the cause of all crimes. Therefore, by creating more accessible rehabilitation programs or therapy for people, reoffending rates would be lowered significantly. The death penalty will end the criminal's life, preventing all reoffending crimes from ever happening. They have already committed a great sin, and by dying, they pay for their sins. Reoffending rates in the US are very high due to their punishments for capital crimes consisting of only imprisonment, whether for life or a couple of years. The death penalty eliminates all possibilities of any further crimes from the criminal. Not to mention, it sets as an example to all the citizens of what will happen when one commits a capital crime, which further deter crimes. Meanwhile, imprisonment only continues the cycle of crimes over and over and over again. It does not deter crimes nor reoffending crimes. Even when we create more accessible therapies, more money would be spent, and it does not guarantee complete deterrence to reoffending crimes. Therefore, the death penalty would be a suitable solution to end all repeating crimes.